Good morning, y'all. I got a quick word for you. The Lord put this on my mind yesterday. Sometimes the Lord will put you in places and spaces in order to help or change a situation. But when the situation either refuses to change or the persons or people within it don't change, He will release you from it. Now, the Lord gave me this analogy. The past few days, I've been seeing things in relation to cleaning. It was a home design game I was playing for a couple of days there, and it was about cleaning up and redesigning or decorating a house. Now, I did the word on the house and the house that you build, but the Lord brought this to my attention the other day. I noticed in the years that I've been walking with the Lord, God will bring me into places where I won't be living alone, but I'm living with someone else. And as these people pass through either the space that I'm in or I pass through the place that they are, I notice about the scenario, the baggage that they carry, whether it's physical bags or whether it's the thing in which in their environment. For instance, if I come into your environment, you can tell how spiritually clean a person is by how physically clean a person is, okay? Now, you may come into an environment and the place is spick span completely in order. That means in some cases spiritually their house is in order. You may come into a space where the house is not in order. And if you notice that the way that the person is they're consistently not in order. For instance, there's one space I came into, and the house was in disarray. Now, me, because my spirit is in order, the first thing I wanted to do the second that they were not around was put the entire house in order. I'm going somewhere with this. I wanted to put the entire house in order because to me, it was an eyesore, the whole environment. But to the person, that's their normal, right? So if I mentally operate in an environment where, and this is something I've been doing for years, where my mother, she used to always have me clean. And the way I used to clean when I was in an environment that I did not like the way things were in disarray is I would pull everything out, clean everything on the inside, and put everything back that I felt needs to be put back. I've done cleanings like this a couple of times in my life, and usually 9 times out of 10 you end up throwing away half the stuff that you had because you've realized you didn't need it no more. You weren't wearing it. It was not relevant anymore. It was old, it was dirty, it was dingy, it was dry rotted, it was this, it was that, it was the other thing. And you were able to get things in order. But you can do that when that's your space. But if you're brought into someone else's space, follow me, and they don't have that order about their lives, you can clean the entire space, do a deep clean, pull everything out, put everything back, so that it feels orderly to you, right? And you can breathe in that atmosphere. But you know what? The first thing that person's going to say the second they walk into their home, I can't find nothing. And they will literally, systematically mess it back up to the way that they feel comfortable. Have you ever heard somebody say that a person will always go back to the level that they are comfortable on? People will do this mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, and socially. Follow me. If I'm the type of person that will clean things out, I don't hold weight, I don't hold on to things, I'm willing to go through the process, right? Some of you have to be willing to go through a processing. If I'm a person that likes going through my process in order to clean things out, I have to go through my process. But if you're with somebody, living with somebody, or visiting somebody, and they refuse to go to their process through their process, they're not going to like or care for you going through yours. I've seen it happen so many times that I will come into a space, get the space in order, but the other person's side of the house, the other person's space in the house, I can get it completely in an orderly manner that my half of the space is literally spick and span, but theirs is a mess. Why am I saying this? Some of you know people, some of y'all, the ones that have been standing for kingdom marriage, and you wondering, Lord, why it's taking so long for this thing to come together? Your God ordained spouse has been in a process. And I kind of touched on this in the word, I think it was the one I talked about pride. And I think I mentioned it in a song too, where some of your God ordained spouses, they've been sitting in a mess. And Alisa Marie did a video where she talked about a dream that she had where she was on a video call with her God ordained spouse, and the house that he was in was a mess. Follow me. Some of you have been desiring so desperately to get to where your God ordained spouse is. But what would you do if you walked into the house and saw it was a mess? Now, some of you, raise hand, would say, oh, that's all right. That's all right. They got it a mess. I'm going to clean it up. But wait, you can only clean up, like I just said, but so much, because if a person is not in that space to have the house cleaned, they will go back to what? As soon as they come in and see the house is clean, they're going to mess it up. Remember the scripture that talks about that your enemy will come in and see that the house is swept clean, and then bring in 7 friends worse than himself, right? So if you go in and you clean the space, you're opening it up for something worse to pop in, because the thing that you cleaned out can't come back, but it's open if you do not pull the Holy Spirit into that space to refill the space, the enemy will come back in with 7 others worse than himself. Yes? Some of your God-ordained spouses have been through the cleaning process. The Lord showed me this a couple of times with my God-ordained spouse. There are certain things that were being cleaned, put in order, being removed, being shifted in order to prepare. And I'm hearing the Lord prepares a place for you. Some of you have been in a journey. Some of you have gone through wilderness. Some of you have had the experiences that you had to live in spaces and places that you would not have liked. But my point is, you can't force a person to clean up their mess, nor can you clean their mess up for them without them going right back. A lot of us will be like, oh, it's just, you just clean it and it be all right. And it's like, you can't maintain something that somebody does not want. You can't. They will always go back to their level of comfort. I literally have cleaned out a space before and saw the person come back into the space and say, I can't find anything, and literally pull everything that I put in order apart till it was back to their level of comfort. And no matter how hard I cleaned it or how hard I put it in order, they put it back in their mess. Sometimes I used to always ask the Lord, why you always put me in the middle of people's mess? Because it frustrates me to try to clean up the mess. But you can't clean up a mess that a person doesn't want to clean up, because they'll always put it back. And some of y'all been sitting up there standing for these men, and you wondering why God has not released you to them because of the mess. And some of y'all, let's be honest, was yelling at God, well, why don't you just go ahead and, because y'all are the cleaner. So you're thinking, well, I would just clean that up. So you're looking at God, why don't you just clean that up? Especially he's God, he's sovereign, he'll just clean it up. If a person does not and is not in the mental space to have that space clean, they will go right back to stasis. Some of your God-ordained spouses were living in their mess, and they had to come to a place where they came to the realization, I need to clean this mess. I need to clean up this problem. Because when they come to that place, they come to the understanding, I'm going to keep it clean from now on. It always works better when the other person comes to the understanding, because then you're not cleaning in vain. Because when that person comes to the understanding, then they will keep it in order. They will remove, clear out, clean out to the degree that they need to do so, that it will be cleaned and clarified, and then the Holy Spirit can really have way in that space. Some of you were like, well, they got this going on, why don't you just take it away? Or why don't you, did God, let's be honest, when God first came and got you, did he just strip you of all your stuff immediately when he first came? No, he slowly allowed you to go through your process. And some of you were disgruntled and it took you a little bit longer. But some of you walked through the process with him. But even yet, and still in you walking with him through the process, he had to break you slowly. So why do you think that he's not going to give the same respect to your God ordained spouse? Why? Because you're in a rush to get to him? Some of y'all got family members. Some of y'all got friends, and you wonder, well, why don't you? Let's go back to cleaning of the house. If they desire not to clean, it's just gonna end up in the same. You can clean it up as you can get it spick span, bleached out, cleared out, and everything. They gonna go right back to stasis. Have you ever tried to help somebody? You did the work for them. You got them the job. You got them the this. You put things in order. You gave them the resource. You did everything that you knew that needed to be done. They still didn't do it because you cleaned the house and they weren't ready. So they went back to stasis. They ignored your advice. They didn't take in what you did because they weren't mentally there. I was thinking about the review I did of MacGyver, and there was a moment in that made me really think about this. I don't know whether it was the elevator and his friend passing away or what the exact moment was. I think it was the moment when he needed to be resuscitated with that needle. It was the moment when that's what it was. It was the moment when the guy was trying to tell him how angry he was, how Satan is angry at us as Christians because he knows that we are going to get the ultimate salvation. And he tried to turn MacGyver evil. He's like, you know that rage you feel. And I talked about your God ordained spouse, that if your God ordained spouse had been confronted by a lot of the people that have potentially betrayed them or were sitting amongst him and really were just sitting there waiting for his downfall, if he knew earlier and it happened in a rapid succession, they may have not been mentally able to handle it. Sometimes God has to let you go through a process. There are things that I went through in my process with the Lord that if he had rushed me through the processing, and I've been walking with God for almost 9 years now, if he rushed me through that process, and especially during that season, that I would have begged him to rush me through that 3.5 years of dirt that I had to go through. And I used to ask God, why did he put me in that situation? When I tell you it was a mess, the place he put me in was a mess. And it wasn't under any circumstance my control over it being clean. And I'm going to even say this. There are some that can clean the house. But if they don't deep clean the house, like I said, pull everything out and clean behind and around and take everything out, but they just put it in order and put it back, they are not getting rid of what's necessary to clean the house. Some of us, the Lord had to put us in dark seasons, in dirty, dank places, in order to really show who we really were. And we had no control of how it was cleaned and clarified because of the fact that we wouldn't deal with our issue if it was cleaned. or if we had somebody excessively cleaning it. Sometimes God will make you sit in your filth for a period of time until you really deal with it. Meaning, you're not going to be able to make this pretty. You're not going to be able to make this. And the enemy's like, oh, I'm going to just make it filthier because I know it is irking your spirit. I'm going to make it even dirtier. I'm going to make sure that you can't clean the way that you want to. Whether it be yourself personally, whether it be your external, whether it be your environment, and the enemy will try to keep you chasing that cleanliness. Chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. But until you deal with the roots of the issues, those things are going to stay dirty, or you're going to stay in that dark, dank, nasty place until God says, okay, you've dealt with yourself. I can remove you from this. Because he did. He removed me from the dark, dank, nasty place he had me in at that time and put me in a beautiful suite. The problem was you can put a person in a beautiful suite, but the person or people that are within your environment, if they still a mess, they won't keep it clean. Like I was just saying, I've had people live in my space with me where it was a nice space, but they kept their side in disarray because they internally were out of order. They had a bunch of baggage they refused to deal with. I literally watched one of these people take everything that they had, put it away, pull it back out again, and put it in disarray. And they kept doing it. One night, I watched the person do this. And I'm like, just put it away. I can't find this thing. They were operating in a spirit of confusion because what they were doing was not normal, okay? And I watched that person go over and over. They put all their stuff away and then pulled all their stuff out again and put all their stuff away and pulled all that stuff. That is literally a spirit. When I woke up the next day, that person had left everything out, a straight mess around them because they just got tired of pulling it out and putting it back. Because they weren't trying to do anything in order. They were in disarray. And they kept trying to say, I can't find this one thing. I can't find this one thing. That's what made them. It's like, okay, I found the one thing, but now I can't find the other thing. That's spirit confusion. That kept them just going back and going back. And some people operate like this. Sometimes you have to pray for a person like that because they really need a deliverance from a spirit of confusion and the double-mindedness and them going around in circles for the clarity and the cleansingness. But then sometimes, something else, sometimes you can be in a level of disorder for so long that by the time you get to a place where you can finally find your level of stasis of order, now you can really see where you're in disorder. I used to always wonder that. Me and God used to have this conversation, and it would be an internal conversation I would have with the Lord. I'm like, Lord, you never put me in a place by myself where I can see truly my own mess. Meaning, where I'm in my own space, where I see my own mess. And one, it's a manageable cleanup, but because it's my mess, but it allows me to see my mess aside from the other person's mess. You understand what I'm saying? Now, the person that had a lot of mess would poke at the little bit of mess I did have. Okay? Because they felt like, I don't know whether they thought I was arrogant for the way that I kept things in order. But I'm not going to say I didn't have no mess. Of course. I could only keep but so much in order. But at least by the way that I was living at the time. But there is some people that just have that spirit of mockery or envy or jealousy of how you keep your order, how you keep things cleansed, cleaned, clarified, because they aren't in order. So they'll get mad and make a mess of what you've just cleaned up, because the spirit on them hates the spirit on you. Let me tell you something. I was living with somebody at one particular point in time. I would get the place in complete ordinance. And I knew this person was doing this on purpose, because my side of the room would be completely in order. Okay? Orderly. Fully. But this is how I knew they were doing some stuff on purpose. One, they told me they used to torment the people that they did. They were like a camp counselor at one point for a Christian camp. And the woman would say that what she would do to those girls in order to get them to do what she wanted them to do, she would do X, Y, and Z in order to make them do what she desired. One, that was a spirit of Jezebel right there. Two, I recall after that, what she did, or this person did, I would find little surprises in spaces. Like, for instance, it was like somebody stuck, pardon the graphicness, stuck their finger or something in poop and smeared it. How did that get there? I would find nasty rags with it in the trash, in places, not rolled up, not nicely put up, where, you got something like that, especially if, for instance, you got an issue, you roll something like that up and you put it in the trash discreetly, or you take it out. This person I knew was purposely leaving stuff like that. I would find other feminine pads or something like that in the trash open. And I'm sitting there. I never would leave any of my stuff in the room like that, because I had a level of discreetness and a level of, my mother showed me, because there was an incident I had with my mother years before, and my mother, the way my mother yelled at me that day, I never left anything. If I did leave it, it was literally, my mind must have been completely gone, and I must have thought that I put it away and only ended up leaving it rolled up in a place, or leaving it rolled up on the counter, or leaving it rolled up. But I still had a discreetness of it, where it wasn't a, let me leave this open and out for everybody to see. But you see how I'm saying? Some people have a mess that they want somebody to find their mess. They want you to see they poop. You see how that is? They want you to see it. They want that in there. They want to make that smell worse. They want the environment to be this disorder and this disarray. They call themselves trying to punish you. Oh, these are things that have happened to me. Let me explain. Because I would put my space in order. Then they would turn around and mess it up. So this particular person operated in a psychological torment with me because they knew I hated disarray. So they were purposely doing stuff like this. So why am I saying this? Some people got their own poop and they are determined that you're going to deal with it. This person operated in a level of the spirit of Leviathan that they would twist things. I remember one night in particular, they had gone in the bathroom and cleaned everything, but then turned around, the same person that would pull everything out, put it back, pull it out, put it back, put it out, put it back, swore up and down that I had stolen something from them. And I'm sitting there like, after they thoroughly cleaned the bathroom, and I'm sitting there like, now I came to a realization they were dealing with something mentally that I didn't understand. But you understand, if you're operating in a spirit, you don't understand the spirit that you're operating in. And sometimes a person needs deliverance from that. Because I remember there was a woman I used to know in New York, and she never washed her hair. She just kept wrapping it up to a point that her hair had turned into a big dreadlock. Now, me and a friend of mine who knew this woman, we knew that woman dealt with a lot of mental issues. And we both said the exact same thing. She either needs to cut that entire thick dreadlock that has been up under that head thing for however long. She either needs to cut it off, or she needed to detangle it. Could it be detangled? Probably so. But when you are dealing with spiritual warfare, remember the video that I might link it to this one where I talk about hair